We're in week 3 of our 21 days of prayer and fasting, and our topic for this week is the theme of revival. And this morning, I wanted to share, some of the initial seeds of revival, and perhaps something that can apply to us as individuals. Sometimes when I think of revival, I think of massive crowds. I think of massive moves of God. I think of heaps and heaps. It just the word revival just has a lot in it to me. But I wanted to tone back and look at how every individual act can be included in and can even initiate a revival. Looking at Acts chapter 9, this is where we read about Saul's conversion, Saul, who later becomes Paul, and I want to read about 4 or 5 passages about what happened with his conversion behind the scenes. So verse 10 of chapter 9 says, "Now there was a believer in Damascus named Ananias. The Lord spoke to him in a vision, calling Ananias. 'Yes, Lord,' he replied. The Lord said, 'Go over to Straight Street, to the house of Judas. When you get there, ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul. He is praying to me right now. I've shown him a vision of a man named Ananias coming in to lay hands on him so he can see again.'" So God's already in this. He's setting up a divine encounter here. Verse 13 says, "But Lord," exclaimed Ananias, "I've heard many people talk about the terrible things this man has done to the believers in Jerusalem. And he's authorized by the leading priest to arrest everyone who calls upon his name." Verse 15 says, "But the Lord said, 'Go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take the message to the Gentiles and to the kings, as well as to show the people of Israel, and I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake.'" Verse 17, "So Ananias went and found Saul." We know what Paul was involved in after this. We see that Paul was involved in countless revivals, in reformation in cities as he preached the gospel, as he saw signs and wonders. We know that Paul was a huge key part of the early church and the movement of the church. But what about Ananias? I think of Ananias and I think, without Ananias' obedience, without him saying yes to Jesus, to what was at that point a little bit scary, was perhaps a bit daunting, without him saying yes, then all of the things that Paul saw may not have happened the way they did. And so one person's obedience, one person listening to what God is saying to them and just doing what he says, as daunting as it may be, can be the spark for revival. And they may not see all of the fruit, but we understand that there is no act of obedience that doesn't carry some sort of fruit, whether it's in our own hearts or it's in the communities around us. So as we think of revival, I want to help us to not just think out there, heaps of crowds, lots of stuff like revival, just this big thing. Think about how everyday acts of obedience can spark a revival in a school, a revival in a workplace, a revival in your family. And just do as Ananias did, without even understanding it, a little bit scared, just step out and say yes to Jesus. So in consideration for you as you engage with this, what is it that it comes across your path every day that God may be saying to you, this is the space that I'm calling you into? And perhaps ask him, God, is there anything that you would want me to do? Any people you want me to talk to? Open your heart to that and allow him to speak, and then just get a heart for obedience to do what he says.